My boyfriend's Netflix history showed a series I've never heard of. I clicked on it. Every episode has a resume watching timestamp that matches exactly when he told me he was at the gym. The account profile name is a woman's name. He's been binge watching shows in her apartment for 8 months. I don't even know how to start this because it sounds so stupid when I type it out. I discovered my boyfriend might be cheating on me because of Netflix timestamps. Not messages, not lipstick on a collar, not suspicious charges on a credit card. Netflix timestamps. My name is Jenna, I'm 29, and I've been with my boyfriend Kyle for 3 years. We don't live together, but we've been talking about it. He has his own apartment about 20 minutes from mine, and I have mine. We spend probably 4 nights a week together, alternating between places. It's been a good relationship. Normal arguments about stupid stuff, but nothing major. We've talked about getting engaged, about timelines for marriage and kids, all that stuff. I genuinely thought we were solid. Kyle works in sales and keeps somewhat irregular hours, but he's been really consistent about going to the gym. Like, obsessively consistent. He goes every weekday at 6 p.m. and stays for about 2 hours. He's gotten noticeably more fit over the past 8 months, which I appreciated and figured was just him taking his health seriously. He'd come back to my place after the gym smelling like soap and deodorant, hair still damp, and we'd make dinner or watch TV or whatever. I have a bad habit of watching shows on his Netflix profile instead of mine. I don't know why I do it. I think initially it was because his profile had downloaded episodes for Flight we took together, and I just never switched back. So sometimes when I'm at his place and he's in the shower or whatever, I'll open Netflix on his TV and my viewing history is mixed with his. Last Tuesday, I was at Kyle's apartment waiting for him to finish a work call in his bedroom. I was bored and opened Netflix on his TV to see if there was anything new to watch. When the home screen loaded, I scrolled through his continue watching row and didn't see anything unusual on his profile. But then I noticed the list of profiles at the top and saw one I didn't recognize. Vanessa. I'd never paid much attention to the other profiles before, but curiosity got me, so I switched to it. On Vanessa's profile, there was something in the continue watching row that I'd never seen before. It was some Korean drama called Unbreakable Lovers or something like that. I've never watched it. Kyle has never mentioned watching it. He doesn't really watch K-dramas at all. His taste is more like action movies and sports documentaries. I was curious, so I clicked on it. The show had 12 episodes, and according to the progress bars, it had been watched all the way through. But here's what made my stomach drop. When I clicked on the first episode, I could see that it had been watched at 6:47 p.m. on a Wednesday 3 weeks ago. I know for a fact that Kyle told me he was at the gym that night because I texted him asking if he wanted to grab dinner after, and he said he couldn't because he was in the middle of his workout. I checked the timestamps on the other episodes. Almost all of them had been watched between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. on various weekdays over the past 2 months. All times that Kyle had told me he was at the gym. My brain immediately went to a reasonable explanation. Maybe he was watching this on his phone at the gym while on the treadmill or something. That would be weird since he's usually sending me sweaty gym selfies and talking about his workouts, but it was possible. Then I realized this was a separate profile, named after woman. I clicked back to see all the profiles on the account. There was Kyle's profile, my profile, which he'd made for me, and this Vanessa profile. I clicked on the Vanessa profile to browse further. It was full of shows. Korean dramas, reality TV shows, romantic comedies, documentaries about fashion. All stuff that Kyle would never watch. And all of it had been watched at times that coincided exactly with when Kyle said he was at the gym. I felt like I was going to throw up. I took out my phone and started screenshotting everything. The profile name, the continue watching list, the timestamps on specific episodes. I screenshotted his entire viewing history for the Vanessa profile going back months. Some of the shows had been started 8 months ago. 8 months. Kyle had been watching Netflix on a profile called Vanessa for 8 months. When Kyle came out of his bedroom after his call, I was sitting on the couch with a Netflix screen still showing Vanessa's profile. He looked at the TV, then at me, and his face went completely white. "Who's Vanessa?" I asked. My voice sounded weirdly calm considering how fast my heart was beating. He stood there for a second, then said, "What are you talking about?" I pointed at the TV, the Netflix profile. "Vanessa. Who is she, and why have you been watching shows on her profile during the times you told me you were at the gym?" Kyle's mouth opened and closed a few times. Then he said, That's my sister's profile. She uses my Netflix sometimes." Kyle doesn't have a sister. He has one brother who lives in Colorado. I've met his entire family multiple times. I just stared at him. He realized immediately that the lie wasn't going to work. His face crumpled, and he sat down on the opposite end of the couch. "Okay," he said. "I need to explain something, and I need you to let me explain the whole thing before you say anything." I nodded, even though I was already mentally planning how I was going to leave his apartment. Update 1. Same night, 4 hours later. I'm still processing what Kyle told me, and I honestly don't know if I believe him or if this is just an elaborate lie to cover up cheating. Kyle started by saying that Vanessa is real. She's a woman he's been spending time with for the past 8 months. But according to Kyle, he's not sleeping with her. He's not romantically involved with her. He says they're just friends. I asked him why he'd been lying about going to the gym if they were just friends. Why all the secrecy? Why create a Netflix profile for her? Why spend hours at her apartment multiple times a week? This is where the story gets weird. Kyle said that he met Vanessa at an actual gym 8 months ago. She was new to the area, didn't know anyone, and they started talking casually. She mentioned she was going through a divorce and was feeling really isolated. Kyle said he felt bad for her and suggested they could be workout buddies. They worked out together at the gym a few times, but then Vanessa mentioned that she was struggling with loneliness in the evenings. Kyle said that she asked if he'd be willing to just come over and watch TV with her sometimes so she didn't feel so alone. According to Kyle, it was supposed to be a one-time thing, but it became a regular occurrence. He explained that they still incorporated some light workouts sometimes. Her apartment building has a small gym in the basement, so occasionally they do a quick session there before settling in to watch shows. That's how he kept up his fitness routine, and why he'd send me sweaty selfies from there or come back smelling fresh after using her building's shower facilities. So, you've been going to her apartment multiple times a week to watch TV with her, and sometimes work out in her building's gym? I asked. He nodded. And you didn't think to mention this to me? You didn't think, "Hey Jenna, I made a new friend who's going through a divorce. I'm going to hang out with her sometimes?" Kyle looked down at his hands and admitted that he knew it would sound suspicious. He said he knew I'd be uncomfortable with him spending alone time with another woman, so he just didn't tell me. He kept saying he was at the gym because that was the original plan, and he figured it was close enough to the truth since he was still getting workouts in, just not always at his usual gym. I asked about the Netflix profile. Kyle said that Vanessa didn't have her own Netflix account and was watching on free trials that kept expiring, so he offered to let her use his account. She wanted her own profile, so her viewing history didn't mess with his recommendations. He mentioned that sometimes he'd check her profile on his own TV at home to see what she'd been watching or to queue up recommendations for their next hangout, which is why I was able to find it easily. Everything Kyle was saying sounded plausible on the surface, but it also sounded like the kind of story someone would make up to cover an affair. I asked if he'd been physical with Vanessa at all. He swore he hadn't. He said they literally just sit on opposite ends of her couch and watch TV shows together or do a quick workout downstairs first. He said sometimes they order food, sometimes they just talk about life and her divorce and work stress. He said it's completely platonic. I asked why he kept doing it for 8 months. Why not just stop after a few weeks when it became clear this was becoming a whole thing? Kyle got quiet for a long time. Then he admitted something that actually surprised me. He said he liked having a friendship with Vanessa because it was uncomplicated. With me, he said, there's always the pressure of being a good boyfriend, of planning a future, of managing expectations. With Vanessa, he could just exist. Just be a person watching TV with another person who didn't expect anything from him. That hurt to hear, honestly. Asked if I could meet Vanessa. Kyle looked panicked and said he didn't think that was a good idea. When I pressed him on why, he said Vanessa was fragile right now and probably wouldn't react well to meeting me. That answer didn't sit right with me at all. I told Kyle I needed time to think about all of this. I grabbed my stuff and left his apartment. He didn't try to stop me, which somehow made me feel worse. I've been at my apartment since then, staring at the ceiling and trying to figure out what to believe. On one hand, Kyle's story is possible. People do form friendships with the opposite sex. People do watch TV together. On the other hand, the lying is a huge problem. The fact that he hid this from me for 8 months is a huge problem. And the fact that he doesn't want me to meet Vanessa is a huge problem. I called my best friend Morgan and told her everything. She thinks Kyle is lying and that he's definitely sleeping with Vanessa. She said no man spends hours watching TV with a woman he's not interested in multiple times a week for 8 months. She said the story about Vanessa being lonely is probably partially true, but that it doesn't mean they're not also hooking up. I don't know what to think. I want to believe Kyle, but I also feel like I'd be an idiot to just accept his explanation without proof. Update 2. 3 days later. So I did something that I'm not proud of, but I needed to know the truth. I asked Kyle if I could see his phone, just to verify that there was nothing inappropriate going on with Vanessa. He hesitated for a long time, which didn't help my suspicions, but eventually he handed it over. I went through his texts with Vanessa. There were a lot of them. Like, a lot. They texted throughout the day, every day. But the content was actually pretty innocent. It was stuff like, what should we watch tonight? And I'm bringing Chinese food. Do you want the usual? And that episode was insane. I can't believe they killed off that character. There were even texts about workout tips, like try that new circuit in the basement gym next time. It killed my arms. There were a few texts that bothered me. One from Vanessa said, I don't know what I'd do without you. You've made these past few months bearable. Another one said, you're the only person who actually understands me right now. Those felt intimate. Not necessarily romantic or sexual, but definitely intimate in a way that made me uncomfortable. Asked Kyle if I could call Vanessa right then and there. He looked like he wanted to say no, but he realized he didn't have a choice. He called her on speakerphone. Vanessa picked up after 3 rings. She sounded friendly and casual. Kyle explained that I'd found out about their friendship and that I wanted to talk to her. There was a long pause, and then Vanessa said, oh, okay. I introduced myself and tried to keep my voice neutral. I explained that I discovered Kyle had been spending time at her apartment instead of the gym, and that I just wanted to understand what their relationship was. Vanessa was quiet for a moment, then she sighed. She said that she and Kyle were just friends. She said she'd been going through a really difficult divorce, and that Kyle had been kind enough to keep her company during a dark time. She confirmed they sometimes used the gym in her building for quick workouts before TV time, which explained why he was still getting in shape. She said she understood that it looked bad from my perspective, but that there was nothing romantic or physical between them. I asked her directly, have you and Kyle ever kissed? Ever been physical in any way? She said no, absolutely not. I asked if she had feelings for Kyle. Another long pause. Then she said, I care about Kyle as a friend. He's been there for me when I needed someone. But I'm not trying to steal your boyfriend or whatever you think is happening. I'm just lonely, and he was willing to be a friend when I didn't have any. Her voice cracked a little when she said that last part, and I actually felt bad for her. I thanked her for being honest with me and hung up. Kyle and I sat in silence for a while. Then I told him that I believed that he hadn't physically cheated on me, but that what he'd done still felt like a betrayal. The lying, the secrecy, the emotional intimacy he developed with another woman, it all felt like cheating, even if it wasn't sexual. Kyle apologized. He said he understood why I was upset and that he should have been upfront with me from the beginning. He said he'd stop hanging out with Vanessa if that's what I wanted. I thought about it for a long time. Part of me wanted him to cut off all contact with Vanessa immediately. But another part of me felt like that would just be a band-aid solution. The real problem was that Kyle had felt the need to hide this friendship from me in the first place. Why did he feel like he couldn't be himself around me? Why did he need an uncomplicated friendship with another woman to feel relaxed? I told Kyle we needed to go to couples counseling. He agreed immediately. Update 3. 2 weeks later, we've had 2 couples counseling sessions so far. The therapist is really good. She doesn't take sides, but she asks questions that make both of us think. In our first session, the therapist asked Kyle why he felt like he couldn't tell me about his friendship with Vanessa. Kyle said he was afraid I'd be jealous or controlling and that he'd lose the friendship. The therapist asked if I'd ever given him a reason to think I'd react that way. Kyle admitted that I hadn't, but that he just assumed I would. The therapist pointed out that Kyle had created a self-fulfilling prophecy. By hiding the friendship, he'd made it look suspicious and caused the exact reaction he'd been trying to avoid. If he'd just been honest from the beginning, we could have talked about boundaries and expectations, and I probably would have been fine with him having a female friend. That session made me realize that part of this wasn't about Vanessa at all. It was about Kyle's inability to communicate with me about something he thought might cause conflict. That's not a healthy pattern. In our second session, the therapist asked me why Kyle's comment about needing an uncomplicated friendship had hurt me so much. I explained that it made me feel like I was too much work, like being with me was exhausting. Kyle immediately jumped in and said that wasn't what he meant. He said he loved me and loved our relationship, but that sometimes the pressure of being in a serious long-term relationship with all the future planning and expectations was stressful. Having a friendship with no expectations was a relief valve for that stress. The therapist asked if there were ways Kyle and I could reduce the pressure within our own relationship. Could we have more uncomplicated time together? More time where we just hung out and watched TV without talking about wedding timelines or mortgage rates. That was actually a really good point. Kyle and I have been so focused on building a future together that we'd kind of forgotten to just enjoy the present. Kyle has stopped going to Vanessa's apartment. They still text occasionally, but he's cut way back on the frequency. I'm trying to be okay with them maintaining a friendship, but honestly, it's hard. I keep wondering if there's something he's not telling me. The therapist suggested that I could meet Vanessa in person if that would help ease my concerns. Kyle was resistant to this idea at first, but eventually he agreed to arrange a meeting. Update 4. 1 week later, I met Vanessa yesterday. Kyle arranged for the three of us to get coffee at a neutral location. Vanessa is not what I expected. I think I'd built up this image in my head of some gorgeous, manipulative woman who was trying to steal my boyfriend. But Vanessa is just a normal person. She's probably in her mid-30s, dressed casually, seemed nervous. We sat down and had an awkward conversation for about 30 minutes. Vanessa apologized for not considering how her friendship with Kyle might affect me. She said she'd been so wrapped up in her own divorce drama that she hadn't thought about the implications of spending so much time with someone else's boyfriend. Asked her about her divorce. She got emotional talking about it. Her ex-husband had cheated on her with a coworker and then left her for that person. She'd moved to a new city for a fresh start, but she didn't know anyone here and had been struggling with loneliness. When she described how isolated she'd felt, I actually understood why Kyle's friendship had meant so much to her. She wasn't trying to steal him. She was just trying to not feel completely alone. She also confirmed the workout details, mentioning how the basement gym in her building was a convenient way for them to stay active before TV sessions. Vanessa said she was starting to make other friends now. She joined a book club and a running group, so she didn't need to rely on Kyle as much. She said she understood if I wasn't comfortable with them continuing to be friends, and that she'd respect whatever boundaries I set. I appreciated that. It made me feel less threatened. After Vanessa left, Kyle and I talked for a long time. I told him that I was willing to work through this, but that I needed complete honesty going forward. No more hiding friendships or activities because he was afraid of my reaction. If he felt like our relationship was becoming too stressful, he needed to talk to me about it instead of seeking comfort elsewhere. Kyle agreed. He apologized again for lying and said he'd work on being more communicative. Asked him what he needed from me to make our relationship feel less pressured. He said he just wanted more time where we could be together without having to talk about the future. More nights where we could watch movies and eat takeout without having serious conversations about engagement rings or kids' names. I realized he was right. I'd been pushing the future planning pretty hard over the past year. Every time we hung out, I wanted to talk about timelines and logistics. That probably did feel exhausting. We agreed to take some pressure off the relationship and just focus on enjoying each other's company for a while. Update 5, final update. 1 month later, things have gotten a lot better. Kyle and I have been doing weekly date nights where we just have fun together, going to movies, trying new restaurants, playing board games at home. We've put the heavy future planning conversations on hold for now, and honestly, it's been really nice. I feel like we're dating again, instead of just planning a life together. Kyle still texts Vanessa occasionally, but it's maybe once or twice a week now, and he always tells me when they've talked. He hasn't gone to her apartment since this whole thing started. Vanessa has been respectful of my boundaries and hasn't reached out to Kyle excessively. I've actually started texting Vanessa myself a few times. Just casual stuff, like recommending shows or asking how her book club is going. It's weird, but I think we're becoming friendly. Not best friends or anything, but friendly enough that I don't feel threatened by her anymore. The couples counseling has been really helpful. We've learned a lot about communication and about recognizing when we're avoiding difficult conversations. The therapist helped us understand that hiding things from each other, even things that seem minor, erodes trust over time. Kyle has been making a real effort to be more open with me. He tells me when he's stressed about work, when he's feeling overwhelmed by relationship pressure, when he just needs space. And I've been trying to be more receptive to those conversations instead of taking them personally. Do I wish Kyle had been honest with me from the beginning? Absolutely. Would it have saved us a lot of pain and confusion? Definitely. But I also think this whole situation forced us to confront some issues in our relationship that we'd been ignoring. The pressure we were putting on ourselves, the communication problems, the assumptions we were making about each other, all of that needed to be addressed. Are we perfect now? No. I still have moments where I wonder if Kyle is telling me everything. I still get a little anxious when I see him texting Vanessa, but I'm working on trusting him, and he's working on being trustworthy. We're not talking about engagement right now. We're not talking about moving in together. We're just focusing on being together and enjoying our relationship. Maybe that's what we needed all along. The Netflix profile for Vanessa is still on Kyle's account, but it hasn't been used in over a month. Sometimes I look at it and remember how panicked I felt when I first saw it. But now it's just a reminder that relationships are complicated, that people make mistakes, and that sometimes the truth is more nuanced than you think it's going to be. I don't know if Kyle and I will end up getting married. I don't know if we'll make it long term. But right now, we're okay. And that's enough for me.